Welcome, Jim Acosta.
Hey, how are you? I'm so happy to see you.
I'm so happy that we are here and not at CCOT.
Give it time. Give it time.
um,
No due
s-
process.
right. So trade wars are good and easy to win. Did we win the trade war?
I don't know. Is this winning? Is that what are we tired of the winning? Uh, I mean, honestly, what this shows is that Donald Trump will blink. Donald Trump
Right.
will back down. I
Yep.
mean,
Yep.
I've covered him for a long time now. For all the bluster, for the image he likes to project at his rallies and so on. He's the business guy who sits at the table and yells, "You're fired," and does all this stuff, the art of the deal and everything else. He backs down. He blinks.
Yep.
And it sounds as though, for the guy who is still super sensitive about how he's viewed in New York and down on Wall Street and whatever,
Yeah.
he still can't throw his weight around with that crowd. That
Yep.
crowd came to him and said, "You need to back down," and he backed down.
Yeah. I think that's right. I think that's
Yeah.
exactly right. I mean, I think it almost feels like Scott Bessent won. It was a Peter Navarro, Scott Bessent contest, and Scott won and Peter lost. Thank God, because
Yeah.
Peter lost, we'd all be, heading towards Japan level stagflation.
Yeah, and I mean, and the other thing too that's been on my mind is, if you look at the breakdown of the vote in the 2024 election, and I take this in maybe a bit more sensitively than others, but Generation X, pretty much lined up behind Donald Trump. I mean, he that was one of his best demographics and all the
That's your
breakdowns.
generation,
That's
right?
my generation. I know, and I'm not going to lump you in with me.
Jesse and I are at the very tail end.
Which generation is the most hypersensitive about their 401ks right now? It's gotta be. I mean, sure, people are baby boomers, young baby boomers on the verge of retirement and so on, but Gen Xers, and it's so you gotta be rethinking this one,
Right,
if you're in
right,
this
right.
if you're in this age group. I mean, look at what he's done with the economy, and this is a generation that is so dependent upon the outlook of their 401ks and their investments and so on, and they're just, it's all in a state of turmoil for the next 3 years.
Let's talk about this because you covered him in his first admin a ton. He was super mad at you. They took away your hard pass. You've
Yeah.
had Here's a question for you. The Trump polling, when he came into office this most recent time, there was a feeling that he was actually popular. He had won the popular vote. He said, I have a mandate. There was a real feeling. The billionaire stood on the stage. All of those numbers are gone. He is now almost as he is almost more unpopular than he
Yeah.
was in his first administration. W-
Right.
How did
Yeah,
this happen?
I think it's because of the way he's monkeyed around with the economy.
Yeah.
Not to go back to that issue, but, I think a Gallup poll that just came out shows 53% of Americans view their financial situation negatively. It's the first time that that's happened since 2001, I believe, something along those lines. Uh, y y you know, you can only screw around with the economy so much. You can only screw around with the financial market so much, and people have figured out the tariffs. I went to get my car serviced this week, not to just give a completely, weird anecdote, but I went to get my car serviced, and I was asking the lady at the dealership, "Are people freaked out?" And she said, "Oh, yeah, they're freaked out. People came in and tried to buy cars. Like, 100 people came in over the weekend
Right.
and bought cars because 'cause they're worried about the prices going up." I mean, people are starting to understand the effects of these tariffs, and, even people in MAGA world have figured this out, and so, of course,
Mhm.
he's underwater, and he's gonna continue to plunge. He can't help himself.
I think that it's important just to, like, keep going on this for a minute. So Basson sort of won, and now they're saying it might be 40%, might be 50%. They don't know. It might be this, it might be that. The whole
Yeah.
point of the trade war was to get manufacturing onshored. That's a 20-year project. And again, you're not going to have to get factories. That's a big job. It's going to mean all sorts of things. It's going to be a big deal. Now that that did not, now that they're backing down, that is not now there won't be any onshoring of manufacturing, right? Like you're not going to
Right.
build a factory if you don't know what's going to happen in a week.
Yeah, and there are so many carve outs, I mean, what's the point of having a trade war with China if you're gonna exempt Apple and iPhones, you know?
Right.
I mean, there's that question. So all of this is I don't know who came up with this line of thinking first. I won't claim credit because it's not an original thought, but basically the point of the tariffs, just like the point of everything else, is to have people groveling at Trump's
Right,
knees,
right,
begging for mercy. It's just it feeds into his need to be, fawned over and cared for and have his feelings stroked and so on. And I just have to think that that's what this is all about, because if he really felt strongly about all of this, he would be holding firm. And it took like what, a week to
right,
basically
right,
back down. They're putting out
right.
these signals that no, 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 he's not going to lower the tariffs on China, but it's all these mixed signals. And you turn on CNBC for 5 minutes, and this is what they're ranting and raving about, that the uncertainty in the markets is just wreaking absolute havoc. And you have to wonder how long the system can take this.
And let's get back to appeasement for a minute. So,
Yeah.
with the back and forth on the tariffs, now we have these cases of the universities, right? Trump is trying to play a card out of the Victor Orban school of like of university capture, right? Punish the elites, the academics, get them because they are absolutely the kind, the idea is to silence thought and dissent. He's got a deal he's making with Columbia where they've just given up and are doing whatever he wants. And then Harvard is fighting back against him. Who is in a better spot?
I think the obvious answer is Harvard,
Right.
and this has been sort of what has been playing out since he came back into office, is you saw, institutions bending the knee, cutting deals, law firms just, completely subjugating themselves, and it's been an embarrassment for lots of important institutions in this country. And it's a fairly revealing episode, because what Harvard has shown, and I think what you're starting to see some other, uh, folks in various industry. I mean, look what Bill Owens did over at CBS in 60
Yeah.
Minutes. I do think that the folks who don't bow down, the folks who decide to fight and take this stuff on, they're just gonna come out ahead in the long run. And I think there's a tendency on Trump's part, and I've observed this over time, when the fight gets to be too tough, when it involves too much work, he starts to back down.
Yeah.
It's like the
Right.
tariffs thing.
Right.
It's
Right.
just
Right.
too much. It's too much work for him to fight it.
Right.
And so it's just easier, "Oh, can I get this wrapped up by Friday so I can get
Right.
down to
Right.
Mar-a-Lago? I got a
Right.
tea time with so and so billionaire guy." And it's like the Harvard thing. I think they're
Right.
gonna eventually come out ahead because it's too much for him. He
Mm-hmm.
doesn't wanna keep fighting it out. So he'll make it difficult for them for a while, but look what just happened today. He backs off of Jerome Powell, and what happens within, like, 6 hours, he starts beating up on Zelensky.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
He
Yeah.
just moves from one thing to the
Right.
next,
Right.
and
And that,
I've been calling it
yeah.
the see and say presidency, because it's like that old toy, you pull the string, this is a duck, this is a cat. He can only pick on one thing at a time, and it's the
Yeah.
same tired talking points.
No, I think that's really what you're saying right now is so important. And it's such a good lesson from Trumpism. And we remember this from Trump 1.0 is that
Yeah.
if you just keep going, he will forget. And for example, that's the difference. Like, I think about the law firms that have made deals with him. He is now musing about, like, maybe they'll represent coal miners, maybe they'll do, you know, because once you're captured by him, you are captured by him.
It's like, "Oh, well, the law firm of Dewey, Cheatham and Howe, they're on board with us. Let's give them, Stephen Miller's, side hustle business
Right.
of going after DEI program." I mean, it's just like, you just are just going to make more, pain and suffering for yourself in the long run. And, you brought my press pass case. Like I learned in my press pass, when we pushed back, he backed
Right.
down. It
Right.
takes time. It's messy. It's
But you win in
uncomfortable.
court.
What's that?
You win in court.
You win in
So,
court.
you
And ultimately,
know,
yeah, I mean, we still have judges in this country. Judge restored a VOA, in the last couple of days.
yeah.
Another judge or jury slapped down Sarah Palin's, bullshit, defamation lawsuit, like, and Trump understands the clock better than anyone. When he was up against it in legal hot water during the campaign, he played these courts, he played these judges like a fiddle, and
Mhm.
and I think what he taught everybody a lesson is you can do it right back to him, and I think that's what's happening.
That's right, and I think and I think that that's really important, and it's also just when you're up against him, what you have to do. The other thing that I think is so important is you have to stay loud, stay visible, stay focused. Like, one of the things that I think really helped you was that you were able to stay, you kept talking and
Yeah.
talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, you just keep going, and what was funny during that entire process, it's funny we're talking about this, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, she was digging in her heels as the
Right.
press secretary and continuing to try to take my press pass, even though, the judge said, "Give it back," and so on, and meanwhile, Trump is, telling reporters, "Well, what Jim did wasn't so bad," and then and then after I got my press pass back, within a day, he took a question from me,
Yeah.
and it was like, you just have to just weather the storm with him. And I think these folks are, and it's just a refresher course for a lot of people, and there are institutions and industries that didn't get under his thumb in the first term, in the first go around, and they're in the crosshairs this time around, and they don't understand the playbook, and they think appeasement works, and it's just the monster. You give the monster food, the monster wants more food.
Again, this is the United States of amnesia. So they don't remember. They don't remember what happened 4 years ago. So they don't
Yeah.
remember that you have to push back, that you can't make deals with him. Now, he has gone more North Korea than the last time.
Yeah.
And I want to talk about the scene from the press briefing yesterday where we had the guy with the beanie. What is that guy's
Yeah.
name? Tim Pool with the
Tim
beanie.
Pool. Yep. He always wears a beanie, and it was lovely in Washington yesterday. It was like 75 degrees. I mean, it's like summer. It went from winter to summer. I think he might be the only person in Washington with a beanie on, but I digress.
Can you even wear a beanie when it's so warm out? Like, shouldn't you swap it out to a hat?
You would just have, like, the swamp season has already started early. You just have, like,
It's
beads of sweat coming
wet
down
coming from the beanie. The
your
beanie, you take off
brow.
the beanie, it's all wet.
Bring it
So
out.
he's clearly wearing the beanie because he's losing his hair. Just who cares? Be
I
bald.
know.
Half the people in that room are bald.
Some bald people are sexy. I don't know. That's what I've been told. Not that I'm gonna go that route. I got
You
half
got a
Jew and
lot.
half Irish hair. It's just not gonna
You're
happen, but
so lucky. But I think so he's in there. He's the first question. The question is basically straight North Korean propaganda. Other people have given you I don't even know, it's like a 10-minute question and then she sort of talked to me. Go.
I know. These are not briefings anymore, they're propaganda sessions.
Right.
And Caroline Levitt is sort of like, the little lady on the North Korean state TV who comes out and she reads her little talking points for the night, and Kim Jong Un was a very dear leader today, and he did very dear leader things, and this is what Caroline Levitt does. And now
Right.
to sort of it's like a Johnny Carson show kinda thing, and she's like, well, she can't just do it herself, so she's gotta have a sidekick. And so
Right.
Tim Pool is kinda like the Ed McMahon, he's like the Andy Richter to
And
her
he's in
Conan
the
O'Brien.
he's in the new media seat,
He's in the new
which
media. Does that mean we can get a seat in the briefing room? Does that mean
I I mean, the new media seat, it's all now. I just want Tim Pool is most famous for having been discovered to have taken money from Russia, right?
Right, right, and then they said that they didn't know that it was coming from Russia, and I think the DOJ I was looking at some of this yesterday because I was like, "What happened with that? Was it"
Yeah,
yeah,
right.
I was
You're
like Trump,
like,
was it the Russia thing? I was thinking that, and, yeah, they apparently he and a few other of those dudes took some Russia money, but they didn't know, or they claimed they didn't know, and the DOJ said, "Well, we don't think that they knew." And it's kind of like a sad and pathetic exercise that the White House press secretary for the United States of America feels like they have to bring in loyalist podcasters to help them get their message out. I mean, when you're trying that hard, maybe something's not working, you know? You could just
She is, but you could see a world where she ends up being a resistancy hero, right? I mean, where she, because you can see in her head, like she's covering so hard, but you could see in her head, like the calculus,
yeah.
like maybe, you know,
That'd be a twist. That'd be cool. And what I've been saying all along is that, if she works really hard and she studies and does her homework and does her special exercises, she too can be as ridiculous as Sean Spicer and Sarah Huckabee Sanders. I mean, they are kind of like the all-stars. They're like the Hall of Fame, the Harlem Globetrotters. She's not quite there yet, but you put in the work, you might get there.
so everything Trump touches dies, right? This is this idea that everyone who Trump, the people who he goes through, and like if you look at Rudy Giuliani, that's certainly been true, right? Sean Spicer, there were certain people who've gone through that, gone in and out of that admin and have not left the better for it.
Yeah.
Sarah Huckabee Sanders actually is the governor
She's
of
the
the
governor of
state.
Arkansas. Yeah.
She has a real job.
She does, and apparently they're in a fight with the Trump administration over disaster relief funding.
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw this, but apparently the administration said to Governor Huckabee Sanders, "I'm sorry, but you're not getting your disaster relief money. So, you take one for the team here and there, and look where it gets you. You don't get your disaster relief money," which is kind of a crying shame. I mean, it's one of those stories, Molly, that we don't have enough time to cover, but we should have enough
We
time to
should,
cover
yeah.
because we're heading into hurricane season. And if they're I mean, like, the way that they're goofing around with public health and, goofing around with, the State Department and Signalgate and so on, if we're not getting our disaster relief money system straightened out before hurricane season, a lot of people are gonna be suffering in this country. And, I mean, it is actually deadly serious.
When we talk about a lot of people suffering here, there it seems like we are hurtling towards something not good. The vaccine, I just read a piece in the Washington Post today about the people don't want to do there's a lot of confusion about vaccines. I think confusion is a very generous word for that, but there's clearly a lot of back and forth, right,
Yeah.
about vaccines. This is led by RFK. We have children dying of measles. This is not never been this RFK Jr. This has never been the kind of thing. This is just a totally a phenomenon that is post-COVID kind of
Yeah.
craziness. Do you think that's the sort of most dangerous? I mean, what do you think the most dangerous thing this admin is doing right now is?
That is one of the most dangerous things. It's hard to pinpoint what is the most dangerous thing. I mean, I do think when you have, what, 800 some cases of measles in West Texas, I mean, that is scary. That should not be going on.
Two
2
dead
kids,
kids.
2 dead kids, that should not be going on, and you have, the Secretary of Health and Human Services, not giving full-throated endorsements, for vaccines, and it's established science going back decades, generations, and he's still saying this cuckoo for Cocoa Puff stuff about autism, and just the other day, talking about environmental factors causing autism. And, as if he has this certainty that comes from some imaginary scientific expertise that he has. It's really disturbing stuff. And it has the potential, you're right, Molly, it has the potential for being perhaps the most devastating thing that's happening inside the Trump administration right now, because if another pandemic comes along, we're just gonna be woefully unprepared, and you're gonna have people in charge. And it's not just RFK Jr. Trump was making some of these same goofy comments the other day. You're going to have a situation where history repeats itself, the government is woefully unprepared, and you have wackadoodles in charge of public policy leading millions and millions of Americans astray, which of course will exacerbate the public health crisis. That's exactly what we saw during COVID, and and it could happen again. There's no question about it. RFK Jr. is probably the most irresponsible cabinet pick. I mean, Pete Hegseth has got to be right up there, but RFK Jr. is without question. I mean, you couldn't pick a more irresponsible person to be in charge of our public health structure. It would be shocking if we could just focus on that all the time, but it's a moving target every day.
Jim Acosta. You have the Jim Acosta show on
I
Substack, which is
do.
hugely successful.
It's going well. I enjoy it. You come on. You're part of the reason why it's successful.
Oh, no.
And I didn't think that this was gonna turn into anything. I thought when I left my old place, I thought I was just gonna go screw around for a little while and
No, it
go on vacations and
it went
stuff.
really well, right?
I mean, I get to talk to all these cool people. I get to have you on. I call it like my friends and family program because I get to talk to a lot of friends.